I'd like to call the Board of Equalizations meeting back into session. It is 1:31, Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. Ms. Cicchetti, could you please remind us where we are on the agenda?
We are in the K, the other administrative matters. We're in the K items. So the first item for this afternoon is other administrative matters, Taxpayer Right Advocate Office Report, K2A, Operational Update. Update on the activities of the Taxpayers' Rights Advocate Office, including Proposition 19 education and outreach and other matters. This matter will be presented by Ms. Thompson.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable board members. I'm Lisa Thompson, Chief of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office, and I'm here to provide you with an update on the activities of the TRA office and also Proposition 19 education and outreach to keep you informed. First, I'd like to share with you some statistics on the number of taxpayer cases completed by the TRA office in November and provide some insight on the type of those cases. Attached to this month's public agenda is a memorandum to the Executive Office from the TRA office, reporting the number of completed and resolved cases by board member district, which distinguishes the cases between the administrative category and the evaluation category, and by topics within those categories. In November 2022, we completed 17 cases. 5 were in member Gaines's district, 7 were in member Cohen's district, 3 in member Vasquez's district, and 2 in member Schaefer's district. Of the 17 cases, 2 were in the administrative category and 15 were in the valuation category. The administrative category includes topics such as creating and mailing of tax bills, refunds, penalty cancellation, defaulted taxes, special assessments, or direct levies on the property tax bills. The valuation category includes topics such as change in ownership, new construction, assessment appeals, exclusions, exemptions, actual enrollment of value, general property taxation, and refunds. So with respect to the administrative category, and its 2 cases in total, 1 pertained to refunds and the other involved payment of property taxes. With respect to the valuation category and its 15 cases in total, 5 pertained to the actual enrollment of values, 3 involved change in ownership, 4 cases involved exclusions from reassessments, and 3 involved exemptions. To provide some additional insight on the specific types of exclusion exemptions, I offer the following information. For the 4 cases involving exclusions from reassessment, 3 pertained to the parent-child exclusion and 1 pertained to base year value transfers for persons age 55 and over. All of the cases occurred during the time of current law under Proposition 19. Since the change in ownership events occurred on or after the February 16, 2021 effective date of Proposition 19's intergenerational transfer exclusion provisions and the April 1st effective date for Proposition 19's base year value transfer provisions. For the 3 exemption cases, all pertain to the disabled veterans exemption. To provide some additional insight on the nature of the cases that our office works on to assist taxpayers, I offer the additional information on a case that our office worked on and how we helped the taxpayer. An example of a case that our office helped resolve involved a taxpayer that lived out of state who contacted our office about property they owned in California that had experienced increases in assessed value over the last few years. The taxpayer was concerned because the property's assessed value had increased by more than 2% a year, and they had thought increases were limited to 2% a year. Our office explained that in accordance with property tax law, under the provisions of Proposition 13, increases in assessed values were limited to 2% a year, but that was specifically to a property's factored base year value. We further explained that the assessor's office must assess property annually at the lower of market value or factored base year value in accordance with Proposition 8, which was implemented by Revenue and Taxation Code Section 51. Our office reviewed the property's assessed values for the past several years and found that the property had been assessed at market value below its factored base year value under a decline in value Proposition 8 status until 2022, when the factored base year value was again reinstated as its assessed value in accordance with property tax law. We help the taxpayer understand that when a property is assessed at market value below its factored base year value, then the increase is not limited to 2% a year. Therefore, the assessor was not doing anything wrong when it assessed the increase beyond that 2%. We explained that a property's factored base year value is based on a taxpayer's purchase price multiplied by an annual inflation factor that our agency publishes, which sets the upper limit on the assessed value. At no time can a property be assessed at higher than its factored base year value. We confirmed for the taxpayer that the 2022 assessed value was in fact the factored base year value by using his purchase price and applying our published inflation factors since the year of his purchase. We also explained to the taxpayer that if he felt the market value of the property was less than the assessed value, that he could contact the assessor's office and request a formal appeal of that property's value, or he could file a assessment appeal formally disputing that value. We directed the taxpayer to our agency's publication 29 that provides an overview of California property taxation and includes a section concerning the limitations of Proposition 13. We also directed the taxpayer to resources on our website that would assist him in the appeal process if he chose to go that route. Excuse me. The next item I'd like to report to keep the members informed is work on the Proposition 19 Education and Outreach for Taxpayers. As you are aware, our office worked with the communications officer, Mr. Peter Kim, to develop a Proposition 19 fact sheet. It was first issued in February 2021 and then revised on April 1st, 2022. In June 2022, that fact sheet was translated to Spanish and posted to our agency's website. I am pleased to inform you that the Prop 19 fact sheet is now available in Chinese. The Chinese version was made available at the end of November 2022, and the fact sheet is published and available on the BOE's website under the additional resources area of the Proposition 19 dedicated webpage, and also available through our agency's publication page. I'm going to take this time also to address Member Vasquez's question that he had during Ms. Renati's remarks under the K item 1C on Proposition 19. So Member Vasquez asked about the translation of information sheets into other languages, the TRA office information sheets. At this time, the TRA office has 4 of its information sheets that have been translated to Spanish. That is the parent-child transfer exclusion as well as the grandparent-grandchild exclusion under current law of Proposition 19 as well as prior law. So 4 information sheets have been translated to Spanish. The next step will be to translating the remaining information sheets into Spanish, specifically information sheets for the base year value transfer for persons age 55 and over, as well as for disabled persons. So, and again, there are four remaining that will be translated because they address, again, the time period of current law as also transactions occurring under prior law, since transactions are still being processed by assessor's office and filed by claimants. So, so that addresses that. At future board meetings, the TRA office will provide further updates to keep you informed on the activities of the TRA office. I'm available. Any questions at this time?
Colleagues, any questions? Senator Gaines.
Yeah, if I could, just, and maybe this would be a question to our executive director, but it would be nice, it'd be helpful, at least for me, and I want my board members' input, but if we could break these cases out in terms of the number of Prop 19 related cases, and you've done that in this particular presentation, but it looks like there were 4 cases that were Prop 14 related that were presented just now, and that would provide some clarity in my mind in terms of how many of these questions are being raised through the taxpayer rights advocate that are Prop 19 related. If we would know that as a matter of routine in our presentations monthly, it'd be helpful, at least for me.
If I understand, I'm sorry, I just wanted to get a clarification from you. So, as are you referring to those contacts made with the TRA office? Okay,
That's right.
so I
Yeah,
did.
this with
So
the office.
I do break them down. Actually, the number of exclusions. I try to give you the number of exclusions that are pertaining to like base year value transfers for seniors, and then base year values for disabled persons, as well as
Yes.
the exclusions for parent-child, grandparent-grandchild, as well as to break them down for those that are applying under or pertain under current law of Proposition 19, as well as for prior law. Historically, in past reports, at least from my memory, there has been a mix. But for this month, for the completed cases in November, they all pertain to Proposition 19. So there weren't any.
Okay.
So in future meetings, if they do pertain to prior law, then I will go ahead
that's great.
and reflect that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
I'll try to be a little more clear on that. Thanks.
Anyone? Yes.
Just a quick question. You kind of hit it, and you mentioned the language, but I wasn't sure if you were looking at other languages as well.
So the communications officer and I would work together to do that. He is actually kind of coordinating with our service provider on the translation. So for Proposition 19 fact sheet, both the Spanish and Chinese versions were published, and he coordinated with the service provider to do that. At this time, our focus is to first translate the existing information sheets that are published currently in English into Spanish, and then we would look at that. But the importance is, to kind of have those out in Spanish first, so they're all, all of those languages.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is it you translate into both English and Spanish?
So the taxpayer rights advocate information sheets that we have on the taxpayer rights advocate page, all of those kind of information sheets, they provide general information about various property tax topics and the requirements for different exclusions and how to apply for them. And we have them currently on the TRA office that address various exclusions under Proposition 19 current law as well as prior law, but mostly, so those information sheets,
What if
4 of
somebody
them have
had
been
a
translated.
request for Filipino? Would you have somebody that could talk to them about it, or?
We don't have anyone in our staff that could talk to anyone about that, but for translating them, we in the TRA office, so we worked on the English version, but any translation services, that would be done through our service provider to do that. We don't do that
Sure,
ourselves.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the presentation.
We're just going to go out to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, do we have anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this item?
For comment by phone, please press 1, then 0 at this time. Madam Chair, we have no callers in queue.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and summary.
The next item on the agenda is Property Tax Deputy Director's Report, K3A Operational Updates. Report on the status of pending and upcoming projects, activities, and departmental issues, including Prop 19 implementation, actions and guidance, letters to assessors, appraisal training and certification, and state assessed property. These items will be presented by Mr. Young and his team.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and
Yes.
members of the board. Once again, David Young, Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. So today I'll start out with the implementation of Prop 19 updates, followed by Ms. Schultz and Mr. McCool for following reports. For this month, with your action in November, it basically wraps up pretty much our implementation process of Prop 19. With your action, we have submitted the 2 property tax rules, 462.250, I'm sorry, 462.520 and .540 to the Office of Administrative Law for their review and approval. We're expecting it to be approved and effective in the middle of January. So we're waiting on that as it goes through the process. With that, we shift our primary focus now to the administration of Prop 19. The board has already implemented much of it. We are now we got fully operational our clearinghouse function. As you well know, the base year transfer is limited to a 3-time benefit. We have already set up the system to track that 3 times and reporting to the assessors as it comes up. We are also spending much time now answering calls from stakeholders, taxpayers, assessors, both written and phone and via the internet. And we continue reviewing our written guidance and updating and monitoring our dedicated webpage to Prop 19. So with that, that should wrap up my report on Prop 19 implementation. And now we're just basically shifting on to regular work for Prop 19. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Well, we've been talking about Prop 19 for several years now.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure if you were in the chamber, but there was a woman that called during public comment on one of the earlier items, talking about how still there is bad information, misinformation out there on Prop 19 on platforms like Nextdoor. That's what she cited in the conversation.
Yeah.
So, although we've talked about it probably ad nauseum, and we're probably one of the most knowledgeable folks about the legislation, there's still taxpayers that don't have the information, and so it sounds like our work is still cut out for us and still still work for us to do still work ahead of us to do. You know what I'm saying? Sorry about that. You'll have to clean that up. But I guess the point that I'm really trying to drive is we've come a long way, but there's still much further we must go.
You're absolutely correct. It has been a long implementation road. We've done a lot in putting out guidance, promulgating rules, and answering calls.
Yeah.
But there is still bad information out there. I would point folks, if you want authoritative information, please look at our website and look at your local county assessors' websites. They're a lot more reliable. So, thank you.
All 58 county assessors' websites uniform with the information, or do they just link to the BOE site as it relates to Prop 19?
I wouldn't say they're uniform, they're not, but they do link to ours, and some of them do actually have their own information out there. They have their own Q&A, their own questions and answers. So it does run the gamut, but it is the more reliable of the websites out there. Right. I would much rather they visit them than next door neighbor.
All right. Next door,
Thank you.
you're right.
Of
All
course.
right, thank you. Mr. Keddy, did we take public comment on this item?
And let's finish the remainder of the reports from the Property Tax Division.
Yes. My apologies, teammates. You ready?
Schultz?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable board members. I'm Glenna Schultz, Principal Property Appraiser in the County Assessed Properties Division. Today, I will provide you with a brief report on letters to assessors. Attached to the agenda this month is a memo on letters to assessors, which provides a list of the LTAs that have been issued since our last board meeting. In addition, the memo provides a link to the BOE's website where a list of all LTAs can be found that have been issued to date. As of the date of the attached memo, BOE staff had issued a total of 54 LTAs for calendar year 2022, and 3 of those LTAs have been issued since our last board meeting. Those 3 LTAs are summarized as follows: an LTA to issue an assessment sampling report for Butte County, an LTA that announces proposed changes to Property Tax Rule 192, audit selection, that conforms the rule to a statutory change, and an LTA that announces the sunset date extension of the active solar energy new construction exclusion. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the staff of the County Assessed Properties Division for their work in writing and issuing the LTAs, especially those that have statutory deadlines. This concludes my report on letters to assessors, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Quick questions for Ms. Schultz, Mr. Gaines, anyone? Anyone? No? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now provide a brief report on the BOE's appraisal training and certification program. Since our last board meeting, we have taught 3 more classes of our most requested courses. So far, during calendar year 2022, we have taught 25 classes and trained a total of 549 students. During 2022-23, we have 33 classes scheduled, both in person and virtual. In addition to these classes, we will be hosting 2 3-hour workshops, one on mineral property and one on taxable possessory interests. These workshops will be hosted via Teams and should be able to accommodate several hundred students. We also continue to offer our existing online training courses available through American River College and California State University, Sacramento, as well as our online courses available on the BOE's website, plus our self-study training sessions also available on the BOE's website. With this combination of different types of teaching formats being offered and utilizing more staff from other sources, we anticipate being able to far surpass the number of courses offered and the number of students taught in recent years. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our staff for completing the courses that they have and working hard to present more courses than we have before. This concludes my report on training and certification, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Gaines?
Yeah, just the clarification in terms of the number of classes offered this year. I know we've been doing more, so are we at a high point in terms of the number of classes offered?
We'll have to look at our staff, what we can offer, and also what the needs of assessors are. Because in the springtime, we'll be sending out a needs request for counties to report, and we'll analyze that when scheduling our next year's classes.
Right, but it's my understanding we've offered more classes this year than we have in the past.
Yes, we have.
And I don't know if that's a record.
If
I don't know how far back we can go historically,
If
but
I may-
I know it's a high number, so I just wanted to highlight that.
Sure. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
So thank you, yeah.
If I may just add, it is actually a high point for us. We've offered the most classes that we have in many, many years. And to be quite frank, I think we're almost hitting to the point where we're almost saturating how many people are in our classes. I know we go up and down with our enrollment, and it has a lot to do with, of course, right now it's holiday season and when work is scheduled around the assessor's offices. But for all practical measures, we only have about 7 months, 7 or 8 months where we can offer classes where there are people willing to take them. So we're getting real close to hitting our max. So
Keep up the good work, thank you.
thank you, of course.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ms. Schultz.
Thank you.
Mr. McCool?
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and all honorable members. My name is Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. Today, I will provide information on the status of ongoing work in our division. This month concludes SAPD's work on petitions for this year. After the board's action on the petition items earlier today, 18 petitions have come before the board for action during the 2022 appeal season. I would like to take a moment to thank our partners in the legal department for all of their hard work and collaboration during this year's appeal season. I know I appreciate very much, and I know my entire unitary staff, unitary appraisal staff appreciates their cooperation as well. Additionally, I would like to acknowledge and thank the Board Proceedings Division's appeals team for their work that they have done these last few months to ensure that the appeals season and our processes are all go smoothly. So I want to thank that group as well. Now that petition work is complete, SAPD will be bringing completed audits before the board in the early months of 2023. Staff spent the summer and fall months of 2022 conducting financial audits of state assessees, and audits that will result in a recommended change in value must go before the board for your consideration. Assessees always receive a copy of the completed audit report and audit findings and are given an additional opportunity to present information in response to the audit findings prior to any audit appearing on the board's agenda. Assessees will also receive notification when the board has taken action on any audit findings. SAPD staff are also currently in the final stages of updating the annual property statement forms and instructions. This involves collaboration with the Forms and Publication Unit at CDTFA. The final electronic version of the forms and instructions will be placed on our website and will be made ADA accessible. Each assessee will be mailed a hard copy of their applicable forms and instructions in late December, with the forms due back to our office on March 1st of next year. As this is the last board meeting of 2022, I'd like to take a moment to thank each member of the State Assessed Properties Division for their dedication and professionalism, and I want them to know that I appreciate all that they do for the state of California. That concludes my monthly report on activities in the State Assessed Properties Division, and I'm available to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for, yes, Mr. Vasquez?
Just a quick one, and it actually goes back to Ms. Schultz, when you're talking about the LTA, I believe it was 54 on active solar exemption. Because we got a call on that, but that's not pertaining to homeowners. It's actually commercial, right? Is that true?
It's any type of property that adds an active solar energy system. The bill extended the extension date for another 2 years. So that new construction exclusion applies for another 2 years.
But it does cover residential as well as commercial? Oh, okay.
Yes, it
Yes.
does.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to go out to the AT&T moderator to see if we have any comments. AT&T moderator, do we have anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this item?
To make a comment, please press 1, then 0 on your phone's keypad. Madam Chair, we have no callers queuing up.
Okay.
Alrighty, the next item on the agenda is Legislative Research and Statistics Division Chief's Report, K4A, 2022 Property Tax Legislation Bulletin, a summary of property tax legislation signed by the governor during the 2022 legislative year. This item will be presented by Mr. Weatherby.
So good afternoon, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Schaefer, and honorable members of the board. This is Dustin Weatherby, Chief of the Legislative Research and Statistics Division. So attached to the public agenda notice, I have provided the board with the 2022 BOE's Property Tax Legislative Bulletin. This bulletin is released annually in December by the division and posted publicly on the BOE's website under the LRSD homepage and enacted legislation tab, along with previous property tax bulletins. This item is not traditionally presented in a public forum, but was placed on the agenda as requested by the board. So the 2022 Property Tax Legislative Bulletin is a collection of the final analyses released by the BOE for all property tax legislation signed by the governor in 2022. This includes the bill's summary, the legislative history, BOE comments, and any potential revenue or fiscal impacts to the agency. Additionally, the bulletin provides a statutory index of the RTC code sections which have been affected and when bills signed by the governor take effect. So in other legislative news, the legislature convened on Monday, December 5th for the 2023-24 organizational session where members of the legislature were sworn in. This date also coincides with the governor's special session on gasoline prices. To date, no bills have been introduced that affect the BOE or any of its programs, and more bills are not expected to be introduced until the legislature reconvenes on Wednesday, January 4th for the full session. So before I conclude my comments, I would also like to thank my talented team members in the LRSD division who do a lot of the work that you get in front of your desk and your offices receive. That goes from revenue estimates for all these legislative analysis to calculating the 4R ratio and the private railroad car tax, and also a lot of the surveys and sampling work is also done by my division. So I like to take the time and commend them for the great work this year. So with that, that will conclude my update, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Vasquez has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherby, on that. And as I was looking at the report, it kind of struck me that 4 out of the 6 bills passed dealt with applying property tax exemptions to affordable housing, which is a great testimony, I guess, to the legislators looking at property tax as a critical part of the solution for the housing crisis that we've been dealing with in our hearing as well. And I'm just wondering, moving forward, because I think it was AB 1206 and AB 2651 and AB 1933, all were hurdles that the governor signed on that I think are going to help in terms of kind of expediting and creating some exemptions for those that are interested in working on the affordable housing front, especially the developers. And I noticed you mentioned in the report too that I guess SB 4 last week was brought back by Senator Wiener up here, that I think he's introduced it a couple times and hasn't gone through, hasn't been passed, but he's looking at it again, which would create, I guess would allow religious institutions that are sitting on properties that are currently exempt, but if they section off a portion of it, like for example, it says surface parking lot, they could repurpose that for housing and still qualify for the exemption if it passes. I guess he's proposing this. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure you're going to be tracking that, so we'll probably be hearing about that hopefully in January when it comes back, when they come back in session.
Yeah, so I haven't looked at the bill's language. I believe the code sections it's touching doesn't necessarily deal with RTC Section 214 under the welfare exemption. So I would have to look more in depth on that. And then obviously if it did affect the welfare exemption, then we would do a legislative analysis of the bill. So unless it touches that code section directly, then I don't know if it would be tracked by the BOE.
Okay. And I think unlike the previous times he introduced it, I think he learned from the previous ones that now I think he looks like he's going to try to get feedback a lot sooner rather than later. So I'm hoping at some point he reaches out to our office as well.
I think if the senator's watching, I think he'll duly note that.
Thank you.
Any questions on this side? No?
Yeah, I would only emphasize, I agree completely with Tony, and we can be proactive on it as a board in terms of tracking it and things of that nature. So whatever the will is of you and the board in terms of what you want to do.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Well, let's go.
Public comment.
Excuse me. Let's go to the moderator to see if we have any comments. AT&T moderator, is there anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
To make comment, please press 10 on your phone's keypad. Madam Chair, we have no callers in queue.
Thank you.
Ready, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's go to, I want to call L2, the next item, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Take an item out of order.
Yes.
The item is L2, Board Member Initiatives. L2A, Board Member Strategic Plan Updates. Quarterly report on priorities, actions, and progress related to the goals of the Board Member Strategic Plan. Specifically, the Executive Director will report out on the agency-wide assessment conducted to determine whether the agency has the resources and infrastructure necessary to fulfill the workload requirements.
Could I ask what happened to new matters? Do we just go?
We're skipping around on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yvette Stallers, Executive Director. Prior to the Taxpayer Transparency and Fairness Act of 2017, or AB 102, the BOE was an agency of 4,000 plus employees. Post AB 102, the agency was funded at 193 employees. As part of the board members' 2020-22 strategic plan, the board directed the executive director to conduct an assessment of the agency to determine whether the agency had the resources and infrastructure necessary to fulfill its workload, and to develop a plan of action to address any resources and infrastructure gaps. The assessment was completed and the plan of action was implemented to ensure the agency and the necessary resources and infrastructure. Members, as you are aware, over the last 4 years, the executive management team has reported on the many achievements realized in our rebuilding efforts as part of our regular operational updates at board meetings. For today's report, I would like to highlight some of our findings and next steps. Starting with the property tax department. Property tax. There was no change in the staffing levels to the property tax department as a result of AB 102. The number of positions remained the same at 116. Of note, after the restructure in 2017, the property tax department experienced a significant number of retirements, mainly experienced leaders and staff in key tax program roles. In state government, every 10 years or so, most agencies experience larger than normal retirements. It just happens to be that for the BOE, our retirement coincides with AB 102. As a result, the department experienced a high vacancy rate and loss of institutional knowledge. Over the past 2 years, the property tax department has filled most of the vacant positions, including those in key program roles. The department is dedicated to mentorship and training of the new staff so that we can ensure they reach journey and expert level skill sets. Additionally, as part of our assessment activities, we have identified issues with the current appraisal position series. The issues involve outdated classification compared to current needs and responsibilities. To address the issues, we have hired a consultant to conduct a study of the appraisal classification issues. The study will address the noted issues, assist with standardization of duty statements across multiple sections, possible classification restructuring. The expected completion date of the study is the first or second quarter of 2023. Legal department. After the restructuring of the agency, the legal department was significantly understaffed as we were only allocated 3 attorney positions. Over the past 4 years, the gap was addressed by expanding the legal department to include 14 additional employees, including support staff. Our current assessment shows that there may be a need to expand the department with additional staff. Staff is working on gathering the data for a conceptual budget change proposal to be submitted in the future. Administrative and support services. Post-restructuring, BOE had no executive level administrative management and support staff. No one was there to prepare, coordinate, communicate, and track BOE's responsibilities regarding human resources, contracts, facilities, accounting, and budgeting. To address the gap, the BOE Support Service Division was established. The manager of this division reports directly to an executive level chief with 7 subordinated employees. The staff of the Support Service Division includes senior analysts with specific experience and skill sets in HR, human resources, contracts, budgets, and these individuals liaison with other professional staff at CDTFA to complete the necessary administrative function for BOE. The remaining support staff perform other administrative tasks to support the agency. Board Proceedings Division. After the restructuring, a review of the Board Proceeding Division indicated that additional staffing was needed to efficiently manage the duties of the division. The gaps were addressed by creating an executive-level chief to oversee board proceedings and support services. Additional positions included creating and hiring a clerk of the board with long-standing experience to act in the lead capacity over the division. Upgrade to vacant positions to higher level senior analysts, recruitment of another hearing reporter, and the establishment of positions needed to a total of 9 positions. It should be noted that during the last 4 years, including during the lockdown of COVID, the division continued to ensure that the BOE held the mandatory monthly board meetings and held our property tax appeals in a timely fashion. This was mainly due to the modernization efforts which we have taken on, mainly our hybrid meetings that we're currently doing today. Due to various public meetings, board work group meetings, and public policy hearings, there is likely a need to augment the board proceedings division staff by a couple of positions. Again, we're gathering the data and we'll do a conceptual BCP in the future. Technology. Currently, many of the board's property tax information technology systems are based on programs that was developed in the 1990s. While functional, they are in dire need of updates before they become obsolete. Additionally, modernizing the BOE technology will provide greater efficiencies and better use of time and resources. To mitigate this gap, we have begun an in-depth information technology modernization project to modernize our services on an enterprise basis. We're currently in phase 1, the business requirement process and documentation for board role program. This stage is estimated to be completed first quarter of calendar year 2023. As funding needs for the steps are identified, we again will submit a BCP. With technology projects, we would go slow. Crawl, walk, run. We don't want to expend millions of dollars on a technology project and it failed. So we'll follow our sister agency, crawl, walk, run.
Which sister agency?
FTB. That's their
Okay,
phrase.
that's a good example. We have some other sisters that aren't so good,
Yeah.
example-wise.
Yeah. I'm going to follow their program,
Okay.
crawl, walk, run. Conclusion, members, the agency's 5-year strategic plan includes rebuilding, revitalizing, and modernizing efforts. With the board's guidance and leadership over the past 4 years, the agency has completed our rebuilding efforts, ensuring we have the needed infrastructure and effectively administer our tax programs. Now, as we look to the future, we will devote our time and activities towards revitalization and modernization efforts of our systems and process, invest in our subject matter experts, explore greater efficiencies, and I think this is the one that you're all going to enjoy, enrich our taxpayers' education and outreach duties. We look forward to sharing our successes with you in the future, and we'll keep you appraised. That concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. And I hope this is the last time I have to talk about AB 102. Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez, is there anything that you want to say? Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Stowers.
Just one quick,
Go ahead.
on this, first of all, thank you for your in-depth report on this. And I'm just wondering, since we have a new member that's going to join us in January, which obviously you haven't had the opportunity to sit with, I was wondering if it made sense, at least, I guess, in the next month or two, to obviously check in with Ms. Sally Lieber and see what her thoughts on ideas as she's coming into this new role in terms of giving some input, and because she's also coming out of her experience as the assembly, and I'm wondering how or what your thoughts are on incorporating that down the road to try to be as comprehensive as possible, because it sounds like you got some real good feedback from us so far.
First, I am going to be meeting with her and give her a significant amount of time getting her up to speed on what we've been doing for the past 4 years. So she will be aware. I'm going to imagine, I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm going to imagine that you guys might want to update your strategic goals next year.
Exactly.
And from there, we'll move forward. I will keep everyone informed, just as before. And then I know if you guys have any particular items that you would like us to pursue, we will. But I've been hearing you loud and clear as far as education for the taxpayers and other stakeholders.
I think we're on the same page.
Okay, just to back up a minute. So we're talking about this because the Board of Equalization, we are on the pathway to achieving goals that we all collectively agreed to in June of 2020. Have restated these goals in March of 2022 and at the quarterly board, at the board meeting. And one of the things that we agreed upon was to have quarterly report outs. And the executive director was talking about these goals that we laid out. And I volunteered to be responsible for goals 1 and 2 and of the strategic plan. And I wanted to just kind of share with you where I am on these goals. So I stated on many occasions that 6 years ago our agency was certainly left on the way I describe it as left on life support. And despite such action, every member on this body has showed up every day to make sure that we administer a complex $86 billion property tax system in a very fair, transparent, thoughtful, and efficient manner. And I applaud the work of the staff, and I want each of them to know that we appreciate and value the contributions that they've made to this agency. We've had a lot of transition, including an executive director, filling vacant positions, people retiring. And so it's been a lot of transition. In order to make good on our commitment, we agreed to achieve Goal 1 and Goal 2 in our strategic plans. And just as a recap, Goal 1 stated to ensure that the board's constitutional mandates are being performed in the most cost-effective, efficient, and timely manner with the 58 elected assessors and California taxpayers at the forefront. Goal number 2 stated for us to establish and meet workload priorities and provide direction for members to achieve statewide objectives and a workload in a manner that ensures maximum transparency and opportunity for discussion. So today, I'd like to just provide a report out on Goal 1, and the key action item associated with Item 1 states clearly that the agency had the resources and the infrastructure necessary to fulfill its workload. The second point is to accomplish this key action step. Our strategic plan directed the executive director to conduct an assessment of the agency to determine whether the agency has the resources and infrastructure necessary to fulfill this workload. And this is somewhat still a work in progress. The third point to supporting Goal 1 is we directed the executive director to provide the board a report on the outcomes of the assessment and the recommendations on addressing the resources and infrastructure gaps. So, Ms. Stowers, you've made your presentation, right?
Yes.
Yes, I thought you, okay. So I wanted just to acknowledge that and thank you for working on these deliverables. And so, colleagues, I would just say that I'm going to continue to work with Ms. Stowers on this assessment as we go into 2023. And we'll be discussing a few more administrative and programmatic gaps that exist. And let me give you some examples of what I mean. I want to make sure that the agency has management level expertise and support in the areas of the budget, information technology, facilities, and human resources. I would like to make sure that the agency is able to launch a comprehensive education and training initiative, which is a request that we have heard repeatedly from assessors. And then third and finally, make sure that the agency is able to provide assessors comprehensive depreciation and valuation guidance and schedules across all industries. And these are just to highlight three. So colleagues, I think we still have our work cut out for us. I am very pleased with the progress that we have gone through and look forward to the updated assessment report out. And I wanted to see if my colleagues had any questions on anything. Yes, Mr. Vasquez.
First of all, thank you, Madam Chair, for the excellent review on what we started. I guess it's been a couple of years now. And I kind of shared this in a memo that I shot out yesterday, but I'd like to say that, or at least bring out a couple of these points in public here, and that is that these past 4 years have really been an amazing chapter, I think, in our lives, as we started this new BOE version, I guess. And I'm really humbled, and I look back at 2019, when we were both newly elected here, all of us, in this position of responsibility for the 10 million people we each represent within our districts, in which you touched on. I had 70 billion, but I guess you said it's $86 billion, which is a little more on the tax system, which I was hopeful that we would be able to work together and make a difference for the state. But quickly, I'd like to just highlight three of the major ones. And I'm sure many of you, my colleagues, have others that we should probably include as well. But the first one that comes to mind is, I think each one of us have been committed to meet the expectations of the public who elected us and the laws that govern us, including some new laws that were restrictive. We developed a collective commitment to integrity as a body, and we place collective commitment to the integrity of the governance policy that we all agreed upon to live with. The second one was we took every opportunity to establish successful relationships with the external partners at all levels, the assessors and clerks, the election officials, the legislators, the governor's office, the community colleges that we've looked at, and moving forward with some of our partners who participated and presented their expertise as we moved on several of these hearings that we had. And I guess the third one was we each developed huge respect for the executive director, Brenda, who helped us guide us through this as we were managing the agency staff. We learned that the culture of the BOE is built on the employees' hard work, years of knowledge and dedication to our common purpose. And I think we became the strongest advocate for employee training, enhanced classification and promotional opportunities and recruitment, as you shared with us already, what's been accomplished these last 4 years. So I'm really grateful for the privilege of serving again on such a strong and collective board, and looking forward as we embrace our new member that's going to join us, the member Sally Lieber in 2023, and then the opportunity to continue to work with our current chair, but now as the new controller, who will have the opportunity to sit with us as well. And wanted to thank you again, and looking forward to this new chapter.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dowers. Does that complete your presentation?
That concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Mr. Keddy, let's just go to public comment if we might.
We're still under new matters, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I did.
Oh, Mr. Keddy, before you do that, we'll hear from Mr. Schaefer.
Well, first of all, I echo all the progress we made and all we've learned, but I like to rattle some cages too. I think the board has become too capitalized. We've had 100% of our monthly meetings here in Sacramento, and the law does not require that. They require that we meet every month. I am asking Chair Vasquez, Vice Chair Vasquez, former Vice Chair, to join me, and adopting our governance code, which says that 1 out of 3 meetings shall be in Sacramento. It opens it up to have 2 of our 3 meetings every quarter outside of Sacramento, and I understand from former board member that's present that in the past they did meet in Southern California. I think we should meet twice every 3 months in Los Angeles County or San Diego County or San Diego County. We have a nice meeting room at the airport in San Diego that we've met in. I think it's important for transparency purposes that we open up everybody living south of Fresno to have easy access to the board. They should not have to get on an airplane to come say hello to us. And on behalf of everybody in District 3, which is Los Angeles County, and everybody in District 4, which is all of Riverside, all of Orange, half of San Bernardino, all of San Diego, and all of Imperial, I want to be a couple hours drive away from them when I have a meeting. So we are going to meet in Sacramento once every 3 months if I have anything to do with it. And furthermore, I don't think it's any of the public's business where we meet or when we meet. We've changed our time from 9 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the morning without asking anybody except ourselves. We've have our meeting on Tuesday, and I don't think the public decided that for us. These are not Bagdad-Keen acts. And if we decide to meet in San Diego, the public is welcome to come, but they're not going to make that decision. It's going to be made by 3 of the 5 of us. So I am losing Gary Gardner, my very fine chief of staff. He is going to work for Sally Lieber, our new member, starting in January. So I'm having to do his job right now and squawk about some of these things. I'm losing Sue Blake, who's been a 35-year lawyer for the state and has been my chief legal counsel for all 4 years and done a tremendous job, and she's retiring, and we're going to do a resolution. And you know, I squawk about the fact that our resolutions aren't that exciting that we give to our people. They look like your personnel record out of the personnel office, and you've got to jazz this up with a little humor, like Sue Blake rides a bicycle to work, and she's chairman of a lot of organizations here. She's president of the Republican Party, and I'm a big Democrat, but that proves us that our job is nonpartisan. We get along with everybody. So I just want you to know that I would move that we invite our executive director to explore for 2023, having 2 out of 3 meetings in Southern California someplace, and that we will formalize it when she comes up with a recommendation. Tony?
I wanted to hear from our executive director because I thought we had this conversation a couple of years ago, and I'm sure our executive director will fill us in. And I know it was an issue of logistics and just the whole taping, which I support, you know, trying to move them, but if it's at a cost, it may not be financially
My thought
feasible.
is it would save money because there wouldn't be all the airplane travel for you and I up here the state pays for, and they don't have to come down to Sacramento, to Orange County or San Diego County. They can appear telephonically, you know, video screen. Our busy staff here, I like to see our great people in person and shake hands and whatnot with them, but I'll put up with putting with them two out of every 3 meetings on video because they look so good on video and they do so good on video.
Ms. Dowers, before you respond, Mr. Gaines wants to speak.
Yeah, just on this issue, I appreciate what you've brought forward, Member Schaefer, and I think we could explore it, and I think Member Vasquez is right, asking the right questions too in terms of expense, but I don't think we have to have all of our meetings here in Sacramento, but I think we also have to look at the impact of staffing, because I think that's the bigger issue, not the expense of members having to fly any particular place for a meeting, but having all the infrastructure that then has to go with it. And it has been a while since we've been in Southern California, so I think we should explore that, and we probably should have, you know, a meeting in your district, Member Schaefer, and Member Vasquez in your district. I'm just not convinced it has to be 2/3 of the meetings.
I'll take 1/3.
Due to the logistics, but I don't know why we couldn't do that on a smaller scale.
I'd like to mention that it's not just the transparency to let the voters and the taxpayers have easy access to us, but the San Diego Union and the LA Times, I think
Okay,
they ignore us.
hold on, time out.
And if-
Wait, Mr. Schaefer, hold on, because you're actually off the agenda topic. We are actually on item L2.
Okay, I'm
We're not
sorry.
on new matters. We're
I
not
just-
on L1.
I'd just like to say the newspapers would pay more attention to us in Orange County
Thank you.
and LA County, and maybe interviewed you and all of us. We'd be of news interest in those Southern California counties if we'd meet there once in a while. Thank you.
So we're just going to go back to L2.
Could I make a final comment? Not on this issue. On the issue before us
L2?
with the presentation by
Yes, please.
Executive Director Stowers. So I just wanted to weigh in briefly, but yeah, I'm very excited actually for the BOE and the progress that's been made over the course of the last 4 years. And we have achieved a lot of our goals. We have more to do, I think, particularly in the communication arena, but we can get on that for next year. Certainly the housing issue, I'm glad that that was explored, but I think there's maybe still opportunity there working with the legislature. And I think it's, it's an honor to serve on this board and have that opportunity to have interaction with our constituents and be able to represent them. It's unique, it's unique here in California, but we've gone through this very difficult transition. We've come through the other side of it. And I think things are hitting on all cylinders. I think it's I'm really encouraged by the progress that's been made, and looking forward to the next 4 years and working with our controller.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eberleit.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to comment on Mr. Schaefer's comment. I believe the proper time to have addressed the board's calendar for 2023 would have been back in September when we adopted the board calendar for 2023, and that would have been the time to have looked forward into 2023, but I believe it was September when we adopted our calendar for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Do you want me to comment on any of that, or just?
No, I don't think you need to comment on it.
Just thank you very much, board members. It's been a great year. And I've been saying thank you a lot, but I don't believe I said thank you. Thank you to all the BOE employees. You guys are excellent superstars. A lot of you guys I know you guys watch the meetings. And for those who sit in the auditorium, thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll address meeting location at another time.
Thank you. All right, let's just take a quick 5-minute break. I just need
Want to put for the record that the motion that Mr. Schaefer had said has failed for a lack of a second. So we just wanted to put it on the record.
Thank you for putting that on the record. We're going to take a break for 5 minutes, and we will reconvene at 2:40. Thank you. Good afternoon. Okay, here we are. Let's reconvene. Ms. Cicchetti, let's get back to our agenda. We completed the L2 item. I don't believe we took public comment on this item.
We normally don't take them on board items.
Thank you for the reminder.
Unless you wanted to,
All
a
right.
specific reason.
Okay, thank you. So let's go to L3.
Okay. Item L3, Board Work Group Reports. L3A, Property Tax Abatement. Adoption of Property Tax Abatement, Work Group Minutes, and Overview of the Board Work Group Report.
Thank you.
The minutes of the meeting were attached to the public agenda notice for your consideration.
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, the speaker card that I have, it's for this L3 item, is that correct?
Yes, I think we'll take a motion, and then we could take our public comments.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to acknowledge that we have the Honorable Claude Parrish with us in the chamber this afternoon, who will be speaking on this item
Yes.
after our very brief presentation.
Yes.
Member, board member.
Yes. Former board member, Mr. Claude Parrish, the assessor for Orange County. Welcome back. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Property Tax Abatement Work Group examined the feasibility of using property tax abatements as a tool to incentivize the development of housing in California. Again, this is for those that we are officially calling the missing middle. Everything okay, Ms. Stowers?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And this agenda item provided an opportunity for the board to adopt work group meeting minutes and provide a brief update on the work group final report. And so I'd like to begin by providing just a brief update on that final report. Mr. Vasquez and I certainly remain committed to releasing the final report no later than the first quarter in 2023. We appreciate our partners with the Bay Area Council, Ms. Stowers, you and your staff. The BOE executive team have been incredible, and we acknowledge your contributions in finalizing this report. Colleagues, unless you have any questions regarding the final report, I'd just like to proceed with adopting the work group meeting minutes, which you've had an opportunity to review. And I just wanted to check in to see if there's any questions for the meeting minutes. Seeing none on my left, none on my right. Perfect. Then I'd like to make a motion to adopt the work group meeting minutes. Is there a second?
So moved.
All right, adoption has been motioned by Malia Cohen and second by Mr. Tony Vasquez. Thank you very much for that. Ms. Cicchetti, just in terms of procedures, maybe we should take public comment, dispense of this item, and then we'll take the vote. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay. Does Mr. Vasquez have anything he'd like to add?
I was just going to thank you and your
Okay.
staff for the excellent, as I was looking at the minutes, for the detail and sufficient
Yeah.
information that was prepared by your staff. Just wanted to thank them.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to do it after the vote, but
Wow, okay.
my staff has just been absolutely outstanding to work with.
Very accurate.
Very accurate. Oftentimes we have had, I don't want to call them fights, but disagreements on meeting minutes, but just want to recognize the talent of John Thiela on the staff, who was very instrumental in pulling together these accurate meeting minutes. Also recognizing Hasib Emran and Regina Evans, who kind of oversees the coordination of all of my staff. So thank you very much, team. I appreciate you guys making me look good. And if there are no other conversations, let's go ahead and take public comment.
AT&T moderator, is there anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding the minutes?
Ladies and gentlemen, to make public comment, please press 10. Madam Chair, we have no callers queuing up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Schaefer, you mentioned that you wanted to introduce Mr. Claude Parrish. Did you want to do that?
Well,
Or was it, I'm
yeah.
sorry, was it you, Mr. Gaines? One of you guys.
Yeah, I did mention it.
Please.
Yes.
Now's the time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce Claude Parrish, and the assessor from Orange County, and really thank him for the job he's done as a county assessor, but also a member of the Board of Equalization. And what impresses me about him is that he's always got to focus on his constituents and making sure that his constituents are heard, and not just the big players within his county, but any constituent, regardless of their economic status within the community. And it's just something I've always admired about him and try to do myself. So we're honored to have you here, Assessor Parrish, and look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All
We have
right.
public comment items. On this item, L3, we have 3 people who signed up: Neil Shaw, Jay Curtis, and Claude Parrish. If you could please come forward. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gentlemen, please just make yourself comfortable up here. I don't know if you have, Mr. Shaw, you'll have 3 minutes. Mr. Curtis, you'll have 3 minutes. And Mr. Parrish, you will have 3 minutes-ish.
Ish.
Who's going to begin?
I think I'll start first.
Mr. Shaw.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and honorable members of the board. I'm Neil Shaw. I'm manager of Orange County Assessor's Office, manager of Management Services and Enrolled Support. I'm here with Orange County Assessor Claude Parrish and Jay Curtis of our office. We're here to make comments in response to the public policy hearing on possessory interest that was held by this board on November 17, 2022, last month's board hearing. The Joint Exercise of Powers Act allows 2 or more cities or counties to form a Joint Powers Authority, JPA, for a variety of purposes, including issuing bonds to pay for public projects. Recently, JPAs have begun to partner with private entities to purchase existing multifamily housing. 49 apartment projects have been acquired in 8 counties with a total price of $6.3 billion. The California Constitution and Revenue and Taxation Code allows a welfare exemption from property taxes if a property is used exclusively for rental housing occupied by low-income households. The exemption requires the units in a affordable housing development to be offered at 80% of area median income, AMI, or less. The California Constitution also authorizes an exemption from property taxes for government-owned property. Unrestricted multifamily housing owned by JPAs are exempt from paying property tax because the property is owned by a public entity. The exemption applies not just to units that are at 80% of AMI or below, but to all units, those that are up to 120% of AMI and those offered at market rate rent. Revenue and Taxation Code Section 107, Subdivision A, defines possessory interest as a possession of, claim to, or right to possession of land or improvements that is independent, durable, and exclusive of rights held by others in the property, except when coupled with ownership of land or improvements in the same person. Property Tax Rule 20, Subdivision B, provides that taxable possessory interests are possessory interest in public-owned real property. Pursuant to Assessor Handbook 510, which party should be assessed is largely in the assessor's discretion. Section 405 provides that the assessor shall assess all taxable property in the county, except state-assessed property, to the person owning, claiming, possessing, or controlling it on the lien date. The section does not limit the assessor to either the holder of the taxable possessory interest or the holder of the sub-leasehold interest. Instead, the statute authorizes an assessment to either party or both. At this time, I will ask my colleague Jay Curtis to speak about the taxable possessory interest assessment specific to our county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen. Orange County, we have approximately 10 projects. Before I go into each project and establish for you why the administrator has possessory interest, I'm going to ask you to listen to a quote. Shaunton Rawson was here at the last meeting. He's a partner and founder of Waterford. This quote is from his co-founder, Mr. John Drachman. He was recently interviewed by a Southern California reporter about Waterford's 5 Orange County projects. Here is his statement. Waterford acts as the project administrator. We run the full acquisition process, get approvals from the city, and then oversee the asset management of the properties and the program after closing. So in reality, they have a possessory interest in these projects. They control the property from birth to death. Waterford and the other developers, and we have 10, have effectively put these cities, who they got the resolution from, into the apartment rental business. The properties acquired were fairly new, fully occupied, and very successful. The developers here, who become the administrator, did everything from start to finish to create the projects. They including the operation and control of them after they were transferred to the city's joint powers authorities. These 10 projects were done almost totally according to the same model of documents, like cookie cutter documents. I have reviewed the documents for all 10 projects personally, approximately 15,000 pages. And I can quote from any one of them, section 101 or 3.03, it's the same in all the documents. So these are nearly identical developments. The developers become the administrator or operators of the projects under an administration agreement. These agreements are automatically renewable year to year, and as a practical matter, they provide that the developer would stay on the project, control it, and run the project until the bonds are paid off. The bonds have roughly 30 years in most cases. I'm going to show you the developer administrator has every conceivable task and right involved in controlling and running the projects. But first, legally, I want to address what it takes to have a possessory interest. The developer administrator must have these 4 qualities in order to be considered a possessor of a possessory interest. They have to have independence, durability, exclusivity, and a private benefit. In essence, these boil down to control. The creation of the projects clearly demonstrate that the developer administrator has exclusive control over the project. Mr. Drachman has said that to us. Section 104 of the administrative agreement provides, and I quote, owner hereby appoints administrator, and administrator hereby accept appointment as the sole and exclusive project administrator for the project. All 10 agreements say that. As for independence, the board documents require that the operator and controller of the project be in the hands of the developer administrator. The bonds require the developer administrator to run the project. They want someone who will run a good business to get their bond money. The rights, responsibilities, and duties of the developer administrator place control over every management aspect of the project. They have it in their hands. R&T Code Section 107 describes what constitutes sufficient independence, durability, and exclusivity. The statutory factors include the ability to exert control over the management or operation of the property that's more than an agency. Section 104 of the administrative agreement describes the developer's control of the project as sole and exclusive. And as for durability, again, the documents require them to hang around for roughly 30 years. So their control is very durable. As for private benefit, well, my boss and the assessor of Orange County is going to speak to you about the private benefit. But they have a considerable financial interest in the projects. First, they receive a multi-million-dollar upfront fee for creating the project at closing. the developer has a private benefit and a proprietary interest tied to the successful future of the project. They receive special bonds in the amount of $8 million in 2 projects and $5 million in 8 projects. These bonds are subordinated bonds to the original purchase bonds. So if the developer administrator does a successful job financially, so the project retires the bonds, they will get their money, $8 million. Did I mention that they are 10% interest on those bonds accumulatively? If they do not do a good job and they can't service the bonds, they will not get paid the $8 million and $5 million. So they really have a solid financial interest in these projects. They stand to receive approximately, these 10 projects, $56 million plus 10% interest. This is more than sufficient to meet the private benefit requirement in the R&T Code, Section 107. It's important to understand the full extent of the control of the developer administrator. So in the agreements, I'm going to read some of the things. The project administrator will be responsible for operation of the facilities. More specifically,
Time is expired,
Time is expired.
unless you want him to continue.
Maybe you can finish up your
continue?
sentence. Please just finish your sentence, but we do need you to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the last thing is I have 15 very specific things they do that give them control. So essentially,
Perhaps you can submit it and we can read
Huh?
it. You could submit it in writing, the
Yeah.
15
yeah,
lists.
we'll do that, thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go to Mr. Parrish.
Well, I'd like to say one last thing. I just remember Mr. Drachman's words
Okay.
when you decide if they have a possessory interest or not, as we have decided they do. We run the full acquisition process and oversee the properties and programs after closing. I would talk to the assessment methodology if you want to at some point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable members and Chair Cohen, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to give up some of my time just to say something of how I am impressed of you. I used to sit on that board, and I remember what we had to do when we had the state assessees. And usually, there was 3 of us didn't do anything, and two of the members were involved in the whole thing, and we dare not interrupt them. And they were self-appointed experts, and so one was Mr. Johann Clays, and the other was Mr. Dean Andel, and they would go at it. However, it's not that way now. I see every one of you actively involved in every aspect, so I cannot tell you how impressed I am that each and every one of you is involved in what you do and take a position. So thank you for that, and now I'll start with my presentation.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm here today with my staff, and they know that, and this is regarding the 10 joint powers authorities acquired of existing apartment communities in Orange County, and to correct some misinformation you might have heard at your meeting of November 17th. First, you heard that the real estate developer receives no equity in these projects, period. However, they do get in each of the Waterford projects only in Orange County the right to be the real estate broker on the ultimate sale of each property, of the 5 properties that is, each property, and to receive a commission in addition to the other large fees and also millions in equity bonds. Here for your information are the project numbers. Mr. Rawson's company, Waterford Properties, has 5 of these projects. Waterford's first is Garrison Apartments in the city of Orange, approximately 98.35% occupied, period. At closing, Waterford receives a $3 million fee and becomes the project administrator, period. Waterford was given $8 million in bonds bearing 10% interest, period. Waterford also received $225,000 per year as an administrative fee. The next one is Waterford's second is in the apartment, City of Orange, approximately, and it's called the Cameo Apartments. Approximately 98.9% occupied at closing. Waterford received another $3 million fee and became the project administrator. Waterford was also given $8 million in bonds bearing 10% interest, period. Waterford also received $200,000 per year as an administrative fee. Next, Waterford's third 1818 Platinum Triangle in Anaheim, approximately 97.17% occupied, period. At closing, Waterford received a $2 million fee and became the project administrator, period. Waterford was also given $5 million in bonds bearing 10% interest, period. Waterford also receives $200,000 per year as administrative fee. Waterford's fourth is Parallel Apartments in Anaheim, approximately 92.79% occupied. At closing, Waterford received $2 million fee and became the project administrator, period. Waterford was also given $5 million in bonds, bearing 10% interest, period. Waterford also receives $200,000 per year as an administrative fee. Next project, fifth, is Jefferson Platinum Triangle Apartments in Anaheim, approximately 97.36% occupied, period. At closing, Waterford received $2 million in fees and became the project administrator. Waterford was also given $5 million in bonds bearing 10% interest, period. Waterford also receives $200,000 per year as an administrative fee. So, in just half of the projects in Orange County, Waterford received $12 million at closing, over $1 million per year in administration fee, and $31 million in bonds bearing 10% interest, period. Also, Waterford has a clause which makes them the real estate broker upon ultimate sale of the properties, period. The value of Waterford's projects in 15 or 20 years, assuming they only double in value, at least $1 billion, probably more than that. If all projects are sold, the real estate commission for Waterford at 6% would be at minimum $72 million. Next, Catalyst Housing. Now, Catalyst is a different developer. Catalyst Housing, in their two other projects in Huntington Beach, apartments are approximately 93.4% occupied. Catalyst Housing received $2 million at closing for this project, $5 million in bonds bearing 10% interest for each project, and an administrative fee of $250,000 per year for each year. Catalyst Housing also has Breakwater Apartments, approximately 97.5% occupied. Catalyst Housing receives $2 million at closing for the project, $5 million in bonds bearing 10% interest for each project, and an administration fee of $250,000 a year for each year. Next is Manat Housing. In their two projects, both in Anaheim, Center City, apartments approximately 98.24% occupied. Manat Housing received at closing $2 million for the project, $5 million in bonds bearing 10% interest for each project, and they too become the administrator, receiving an annual fee of $125,000 each. Manat Housing's second project is the mix, approximately 68.49% occupied. Finally, something that had some vacancy. Manat Housing received at closing $175,000 for this project, $5 million in bonds bearing 10% interest for each year, they become the administrator, receiving an annual fee of $125,000. Last is Building Housing. They have one project in the city of Orange, Allure Apartments, approximately 98.35% occupied. They received $2 million at closing, $5 million in bonds bearing 10% interest, and an annual fee as administrator of $250,000. In summary, in Orange County, we have 4 real estate developers who initiate 10 projects and receive a total of $21,750,000 in fees. At closing, $56 million in 10% bonds, and an annual administration fee of $2.2 million, which increased 3% per year and will not likely run for 30 years because they can sell them out anytime they want. In closing, I'll give you a copy of this. They got all sorts of scribbling on here, but the amount of the administration is fees at closing $56 million, $2,023,000, which increases 3% per year, and finally $6,750,000 in administration fees, approximately a total of $138 million. You know, I'm all for low-income housing, and we need to build more income housing, not shuffle the deck back and forth, having winners and losers. We need brand new housing. These are people that pay some of them $3,000 a month, and it's a shame that this kind of effort isn't spent to doesn't create one new unit. Thank you for your attention, members of the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that.
Very good.
Just want to encourage you to continue to work with the member that represents you on this body.
Yes.
For the issue, or for the item that brings you out, your concern about possessory
Thank you
interests.
so much.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for reading your concerns onto the record. Mr. Keddy?
We had a motion, and we did public comment, and so now I'll call roll. And the motion was to adopt the Property Tax Abatement Board Work Group Minutes by Ms. Cohen, and second by Mr. Vasquez. Chair Cohen?
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
Aye.
Member Gaines?
Aye.
Member Vasquez?
Aye.
Deputy Controller Epelite?
Aye.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. This motion passes.
If I could just
Yes, please.
make a comment real quick. I wanted to thank Claude Parrish, Assessor Claude Parrish, and the team for bringing that forward and just shedding light on it. I didn't know all the detail on JPAs as it relates to housing, but thank you for bringing that forward.
I will be sending you a copy. There's so many scribbles here. You'll get a clean copy of exactly what I said.
Thank you.
All of you, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Where are we on the agenda now? I think we need to go back to, is it L1?
L1?
And is that the only thing we have on the agenda left?
We have a couple of other items
A
left.
couple other items? Okay.
Yes.
Let's go to L1.
Okay. L, Board Member Requested Matters. L, New Matters, L1A. Term End Review, 2019 to 2022 highlights, an overview of the board's accomplishments over the past 4 years, presented by Ms. Cohen.
All right, thank you. Let me pivot. Mr. Vasquez, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
You know, I kind of read it into the,
Any other
in
item?
the L2, yeah.
Could you just
Sure, let me go back. if you
Yeah,
want.
redo it.
First of all, I started off by just thanking you, Chair, for the excellent review of what we've been doing here. And once again, I'm really humbled by these last 4 years that all of us, were able to step up and really engage as we were all new to this. And by running, especially the hearings, the workshops, specifically on the affordable housing piece, the governance piece, and working with our partners. We had several hearings, especially during COVID, where we had sometimes, up to 1,000 people on the line, which I think was great in terms of input. And at the end of the day, making sure that they were all heard, and hopefully we incorporated a lot of their suggestions as we move forward. But at the end of the day, I'm really grateful for the privilege of having served these last 4 years with my colleagues here, and looking forward to the next 4, and with our new member-elect coming in, Sally Lieber, and now with our current chair sitting up here as our controller in the new year. And with her ideas and input, I am excited to continue our progress on our major initiatives. Like I mentioned, I just kind of went over the 3, and I did send this out to folks, so hopefully you have it also in writing. But looking forward to this next year, and open to any comments or suggestions as we move forward. And I know in talking to staff, especially our new executive director, looking forward, once we have our new board members sitting in, that we possibly entertain a follow-up, kind of like a phase 2 to our retreat that we started 4 years ago. And to see, because many of, when we laid that out, we kind of put them in categories, short-term, long-term goals, and we should start checking them off, because I know we've been able to accomplish several of the short ones, but I know some of them were mid and long range, and to just kind of get a status check on those and see where we're at, and to add anything new, especially with the new member joining us. I'm sure she may have some ideas and thoughts in terms of what she would like to see in terms of potential goals of this board moving forward. And with that, I'll pass it back on to Chair.
All right, well, thank you very much. What I'd like to do is just acknowledge and go over some of the key highlights for the last 4 years, just as a recap. And I want to start by just congratulating each and every one of you and your respective team members for your partnership and collaboration. Congratulations to you in getting reelected. And we have collectively provided a strong and transparent leadership for the Board of Equalization during a very critical moment in the agency's history. And these comments not only reflect us as board members, but also staff. And I want to spend a few minutes highlighting what we've accomplished over the last 4 years. So in 2019, we selected our first executive director, Ms. Brenda Fleming. She was acting when we were all sworn in office. We established a board governance policy to ensure that we fulfill our constitutionally mandated duties with the highest level of transparency that is consistent with governing state laws and statutes. And you may recall Controller Yee led that process. We also launched a California property tax modernization initiative that included convening 2 of 4 informational hearings in San Diego and San Jose. They were titled Modernizing California's Property Tax System, Opportunities, Challenges, and Emerging Issues. And my staff and I were really excited to put that piece together and bring to the public to begin to get their feedback on what they'd like to see when it comes to the property tax system. We also dealt with critical issues that we examined. We examined workforce planning, placing an emphasis on recruitment, retention, training, and compensation. This is an area that has been particularly of interest to Senator Gaines. We have put together best practices of assessment appeals board. We have been involved in the valuing of business equipment and fixtures with an emphasis on complex assessment challenges. Personally, I learned a lot during that discussion session. I had no idea that vats that hold fermenting wine had such a complex assessment value. Some of the emerging issues that we heard were no doubt the split roll. And I'd imagine we will continue to hear split roll discussions come around. And we also had conversations around opportunity zones. How do we begin to leverage them to create opportunities in communities that have not always benefited from opportunity? We've discussed leveraging technology and ensuring that the state-of-the-art technology is available for property tax administration, which then led to a $30 million grant that we were successful in helping assessors get earlier this year from the governor's office. And then also we examined current tax code exemptions. So this process also involved a very thoughtful and thorough review of all the laws, regulations, processes, and a survey of county assessors on the strengths and areas of growth for tax administration. We also, interestingly enough, established a board member work group on property tax workforce planning that was specifically charged with addressing recruitment, training, and continuing education, as well as compensation for our future and current workforce. We launched and completed the board's strategic planning process that was spurred by Mr. Vasquez. In 2020, we were just as active despite COVID. We convened the 3rd of 4 informational hearings in Sacramento, again, focusing on modernizing the property tax system. We partnered with the executive director and the 58 county assessors to ensure that our respective team members were all safe and healthy and had the necessary resources to carry out their respective responsibilities remotely. Remember, that's when we transitioned to working from home. We collectively worked to establish, in partnership with the executive director, the board's ability to convene virtual board meetings due to an unprecedented health emergency. So largely credit Brenda Fleming for skillfully navigating us through those choppy waters. And also in 2020, we established a board work group on county boards of equalization assessment appeals boards, specifically examining remote hearings. And you may recall we set out with the goal of preserving due process rights of all parties during the COVID-19 pandemic and ensuring that there was a continuity of government. And that brings me to 2021. The highlights here are just as impressive. We partnered with the California Assessors Association and the legislature to draft Prop 19 implementation legislation, which resulted in Senate Bill 539 that was carried by Senator Hertzberg, and it's going to be, and was enacted on September 30th of 2021. And this measure made several clarifying changes to the Home Protection for Seniors, Severely Disabled Families, and Victims of Wildlife or Natural Disaster Act, also known as Prop 19. So, also want to acknowledge that Senate Bill 539 quite honestly provided clarity. It provided guidance for county assessors, for the BOE, and property owners on several parts of this new constitutional language that this act passed that was not written into the original language. So we also explored statutory and constitutional relief for property taxes, taxpayers impacted by COVID-19 and future emergencies, or also we also considered the impact of natural disasters. And what we actually ended up doing was petitioning governor's office to extend the constitutionally mandated deadlines for taxpayers to complete actions required to preserve property tax benefits. And I think that was probably one of the most things that I remember the most about last year, and one of our most proud, my most proud accomplishment was just protecting taxpayers' interests. And we made recommendations to the legislature to make other priorities. I hope to revisit them in 2023. But I'd like to reestablish a partnership with the executive director and the BOE Advisory Council and establish a board work group on property tax abatements. This is, I think, a continuing and ongoing work. In 2022, this year, we selected a new executive director, Ms. Stowers, to lead the organization. We reconvened the board work group on county boards of equalization and assessment appeals board remote hearings. And again, this was to highlight the lessons that we learned and then to explore further whether opportunity for consensus building existed on outstanding issues with the goal of preserving due process rights of all parties during the COVID-19 pandemic, and more importantly, beyond. We successfully secured a partnership with the Assessors Association, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, a $30 million funding for over 3 years, a total of $10 million over 3 years, beginning in fiscal year 2022 and ending in 2023. And again, this is for county assessors so that they may upgrade their information technology needs. We also convened 3 successful meetings under the board work group, property tax abatement. And this is where we explored the use of abatements in California to incentivize the development of attainable housing for healthcare workers, for first responders, manufacturer workers, for educators. We also launched the Translate button on the BOE website to increase access to BOE resources in 9 different languages. And I know that was like a Herculean effort, and I'm really grateful that we have this progress and that we're moving forward. We have adopted the placement of assessment practice surveys on the board meeting agenda. Small, simple accomplishment, but nonetheless it deserves attention. And this really is to highlight best practices and to identify any regional and universal issues that may require guidance or future education or training. So colleagues, that is a lot, but in closing, we have accomplished a lot in 4 years. And I want to remind each of you that we started this process and we were in charge of administering guidance to a $65 billion property tax system. And now today we heard the executive director speak of our current system being $100 billion. Is that what I heard correctly? Thank you. $100 billion property tax system. So our local government, special districts, and schools are they're definitely counting on us to make sure that we are good at our job. So I want to continue to challenge us to stay focused on 3 priorities that we set out to accomplish in 2019. I want to make sure that we continually strive to restore the stellar national reputation of the Board of Equalization. This is the reputation that the BOE had for many years. And every day I strive, and I hope you'll join me in this, in trying to bring it back to that point. And in doing so, in this effort, we are rebuilding the agency's administrative and programmatic infrastructure to make sure that we have the resources that we need to protect California taxpayers, while simultaneously ensuring that the agency and all 58 county assessors have the necessary resources to fulfill their respective constitutional duties. And also, third and final, modernizing this property tax system to ensure that the complex that was $85 billion, which is now $100 billion system, it's administered fair and that it's effective and, most importantly, efficient. So thank you for an amazing 4 years. And to the executive director and the entire BOE team, we are grateful for your partnership. It has made a difference in all of our accomplishments. And again, a personal thank you to my staff that have been with me on this ride for the last 4 years. Thank you. I'll open it up to see if there's any comments or questions. Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, it has been an honor to serve. I appreciate the comments of Member Vasquez and Chair Cohen in terms of your leadership over the course of the last 4 years. And just excited about further implementation in the future, and do a great job as controller and keep an eye on that money. Make sure that we're spending the money carefully at the state level. So, thank you.
Well, you guys have worked with me closely the last 4 years. I think you got a sense of leadership style and how close we do pay attention to the details. And our commitment to transparency and sounding the alarm and addressing a problem head on and not dancing around it, but making sure that we are able to address the shortcomings as they come before us.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
I'm impressed with all the talent you brought to the job, having been member of the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco City and County, having been president of the Police Commission for San Francisco. You bring a world of perspectives to us. It made you a much better member than we would expect, and I'm very pleased.
Thank you. I'm glad I increased your expectations. Anything on this side? No? Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, Mr. Vasquez.
Just in wrapping up, once again, thank you, and to all my colleagues. I think, like you mentioned in your remarks, when you look at the list, it's pretty daunting. We started this thing, all of us, not knowing anything really about the new role BOE was all going to be about. And like you said, we took it head on.
Yep, we did it. All right, let's go ahead and take public comment.
AT&T moderator, is there anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0. And there's currently no one in the queue at this time, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Okay.
We're up to the M items. M, public policy hearing. M1, Proposition 19, implementation. There are no planned staff report or external speakers for this agenda item for this month's meeting. However, persons who wish to address the board on this topic as a public comment may do so. I I could go out to the AT&T moderator. We have no one in the audience. AT&T moderator, please let us know if there's anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this item.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, if you wish to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Thank you.
We'll close this public policy hearing and move on to the next item, M, public policy hearing, M2, impact of public calamities on property tax administration, county boards of equalization, assessment appeal boards, AAB, remote hearings. There are no planned staff reports or external speakers for this agenda item for this month's meeting. However, persons who wish to address the board on this topic as a public comment may do so. AT&T moderator, is there anyone on the line who'd like to make a public comment regarding this item?
And there's still currently no one in the queue, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Hearing no comments from anyone, we will close this public policy hearing. The next item on the agenda is N, public comment on matters not on the agenda. Persons who wish to address the Board of Equalization regarding items not on the agenda may do so under this item. Please note that the board cannot take action on any items not on the agenda. However, the board can schedule issues raised by the public for consideration at future meetings. We have no one in the auditorium who wants to make a public comment. We have not received anything in writing on this item, but I will go to the AT&T moderator. AT&T moderator, is there anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment regarding this item?
As a reminder, if you wish to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0. And there's currently no one in the queue, Madam Chair.
Alrighty, the next item on the agenda is O, closed session. The board will recess and go into closed session to discuss litigation matters under Government Code Section 11126E. There are 13 items for discussion. 1, pending litigation, La Paloma Generating Company, LLC versus the California State Board of Equalization, et al., Los Angeles County Superior Court. Number 2, pending litigation, AT&T Mobility, LLC, et al. Versus the County of Riverside, et al., Riverside County Superior Court. Number 3, pending litigation, Sprint Technology, PCS, LP versus the County of Riverside, et al., Riverside County Superior Court. Number 4, pending litigation, T-Mobile West, LLC versus County of Riverside, et al., Riverside County Superior Court. Number 5, pending litigation, AT&T Mobility, LLC, et al. Versus the County of San Diego, et al., San Diego County Superior Court. Number 6, pending litigation, Sprint Technology, PCSLP, et al. Versus the County of Santa Clara, et al., Santa Clara County Superior Court. Number 7, pending litigation, T-Mobile West, LLC versus the County of Santa Clara, et al., Santa Clara County Superior Court. Number 8, pending litigation, AT&T Mobility, LLC, et al. Versus the County of Santa Clara, et al., Santa Clara County Superior Court. Number 9, pending litigation, Southern California Edison Company versus California State Board of Equalization, et al., Orange County Superior Court, 2020 and 2021. Number 10, pending litigation, Suneezy LLC, et al. Versus the County of Riverside, et al., Riverside County Superior Court. Number 11, pending litigation, Frontier California, Inc. versus the County of San Joaquin, et al., San Joaquin County Superior Court. Number 12, pending litigation, Michael D. Myers versus the State Board of Equalization, et al., Court of Appeals, Second Appellate District. And 13, pending litigation, David W. Swanson versus the Franchise Tax Board, et al., Court of Appeal, 4th Appellate District.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cicchetti, for reading the items that we're going to be taking up in closed session. We are now going to recess and begin our closed session. Thank you. reconvene this meeting.
The board members met in closed session and discussed litigation matters.
Do we need to make a motion not to disclose what was discussed in closed session? Thank you. All right, Ms. Cicchetti, please call the next item.
Our last item for the day is closing remarks.
All right, thank you. Colleagues, any closing remarks? Mr. Eppolite, we'll start on the, what is this, to my right, and we'll work our way down. That making you, Mr. Gaines, on the left.
For a change.
No.
No.
You're last, because you're
Last.
on the, I'm making you left, Mr. Gaines. Yes. All right, Eppolite, you're
Converted
up.
him.
All right.
Is that stage left or stage right?
As this is my last meeting with all of you,
Oh, yeah.
I would like to thank Controller Yi for the privilege as serving as her deputy, and I would like to thank all of the members. It has been a privilege to serve with you. Thank you for your kindness.
Sorry.
I would also like to thank BOE staff for their guidance this last several months. And I now return to the Franchise Tax Board Legal. And I would like to give everyone my best wishes to all of you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eppolite. It's been a pleasure to serve with you. Mr. Vasquez, any final remarks?
Thank you, and sorry to see you that you have to go back to your regular job at FTV, but really enjoyed your input, especially your legal background on some of these issues. But in closing, just wanted to thank everybody here, not only my colleagues, but staff, to have hopefully a safe and wonderful holiday with your families. You know, it's been a while, I know, for many of us to really enjoy it, you know, given this pandemic, but hopefully, I mean, we're hearing that this flu's now going around, but hopefully we can still get together, and looking forward to the new year. And congratulations to our member, controller.
Thank you.
This will be your last official meeting, right?
Yes, as this member, which I'll...
On this role, right?
In this role.
Yeah. Thanks again.
All right, thank you. So with that, I just want to say that today really does mark an important milestone. This is the last meeting of the members on the board who were elected in 2018. And I think that this board in particular, will go down in history, whether they recognize us or not, but as a new board coming in and really building building up an organization that was taken down. So for me, today represents both an end as well as a beginning, if you will. I end my service as a representative for District 2 on January 1, and then on January 2, 2023, I will begin my duties as State Controller. And so today it's a brief farewell, but not a goodbye. It's been an honor to serve as a member of the State Board of Equalization. I have enjoyed advocating on behalf of this agency, sometimes sparring with members of the legislature on the legitimacy of the Board of Equalization, but I will never waver from my commitment on how important the Board of Equalization is for taxpayers. And my service on this board has been assisted and often guided by the work of you guys, my colleagues, and Vice Chair Schaefer, Senator Gaines, Member Vasquez, and then Controller Yi and Deputy Controller Eppolite. You guys, your work and dedication to this body, and more importantly to the great people of California, has ensured that our reputation as an agency of service continues and remains to be unbroken. And I want to acknowledge our 58 county assessors. I consider them partners in the property tax administration. I've always valued them and indeed treasure their expertise and their dedication and commitment to the work that they are doing. California is proud of your service, and I deeply appreciate all the contributions each of you make in your own way to this system. And these last 4 years have been a time of great challenge, and you heard earlier, we've have quite a number of accomplishments. I'm happy to furnish that list of accomplishments if anyone wants to challenge you about what does the Board of Equalization do and how do we do it. I hope that you will be armed and ready to state out the facts. And in the midst of the greatest global pandemic in a century and many social and economic challenges, we continued uninterrupted to provide the kind of fair, effective, and efficient property tax administration that our state's almost 40 million residents depend upon. So in real terms, what does this mean? It means that our schools and our local governments continue to receive the money that they need to serve every corner of our glorious state. All of this work wouldn't be done without the continuing hard work of the excellent Board of Equalization staff. Director Stowers, you've stepped up and gone the extra mile. I also want to recognize the staff. Most times we never even see your work. And those that don't come to the chamber and don't interact with us on a regular basis, I want to highlight their work. So you are heads of teams. Please pass on my gratitude to the teams that you represent, because we value the work product, and it is truly a collective team effort. And for those that are on the board that wade through volumes of documents each meeting, the legal memorandums and regulatory matters, administrative matters, state assess evaluation settings, and just so much more. We value your work, particularly those persons that are on our individual teams that are charged with the duty to go through these very important constitutional functions. So we recognize the unique expertise that exists in this body and in this organization. This agency wouldn't succeed without it. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. And thank you. Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Chair Cohen. I support your sparring, as you have, with the legislature, and we should spar with people in or outside the agency whenever we can get their attention to strengthen the way we serve the public. I'd like to thank Lisa Thompson's the only department head who's lasted to the end of the meeting today. Thank you. And I'd like to...
You got Lisa Renati.
Yes, well, she's sort of a chief, you know. And I want to thank the holiday season, wish the best of the holiday season to all the people I can see that are with us and all the people I can't see that are with us. And in closing, you know, I like to add a little bit of the outside world by way of a commemoration, and today is the 97th birthday of one of the most honorable members of entertainment industry out of California, Dick Van Dyke, who you all know from Mary Poppins and from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And I've met Mr. Van Dyke. He wears a Santa Claus beard naturally right now, if you would see him at 97, and we're so lucky he's still with us. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody. It's been a pleasure to serve with you on the board, and I think we've been able to thread the eye of the needle in terms of a functioning board. And you know, there's been a history to the BOE historically, some of it good and some of it not so good. So I'm encouraged that the board has worked so well together, even with differing views. And so I just look forward to next year, and I wish best to Chair Cohen in her new capacity. But as she mentioned, we'll still be working with her hand in hand in the future. And I would just hope you all have a good end of the year celebration. I'll be celebrating that as Christmas, but whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or however you celebrate, this beautiful time of year. I just wish you the best. Hope it's an opportunity for you to get together with family and friends and realize how precious those relationships are. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, ladies and...
Madam Chair, before I forget.
Okay.
You have a birthday coming up on the 16th.
Yeah, almost forgot.
Here's
Yes,
the I know sometimes we don't want to, we forget our New Year's, but yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that
Happy early
acknowledgement.
birthday.
What? Okay, goodbye. Come on, Ms. Towers.
I know I've been up here 4 times already. But I also want to say, first of all, happy holidays. Second, I want to really acknowledge all 5 of you. I talked about crawl, walk, run when it comes to technology, but you guys are ready to run the marathon. You guys have done an excellent job in right-sizing the organization because we had a lot of issues, and you guys have turned it around, and even Assessor Parrish noticed it. He said to me, this is a different board. This is not what, even when he was on the board, it's not the board. It's not what the gentleman, one of the gentlemen was representing the client said, this is not your grandfather BOE anymore. It's different. So congratulations to you. You guys for doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank
Happy
you very
holidays,
much.
everyone.
Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.